Hey guys, it's Rodimus Primal. I am back with another video, and today I am bringing you guys a toy review for Transformers War for Cybertron Siege Shockwave. And while I had already opened him out of the box, this toy was requested, so I decided, you know what, I might as well do so. And I really dig this figure. So I'm going to get into some pretty cool stuff with this guy. So sit back, relax, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and let's transform and roll out. Consider supporting the channel on Patreon. With your support, you can help us bring you more content like this. Okay, so I decided to keep him in his robot mode before getting into his transformation because this is how he comes out of the box. And Shockwave is a fine looking toy. You can do a lot of cool stuff with him. He's articulated in a lot of places. You can move him at his shoulders, at his elbows, at his wrists. He has articulation in the knees. The problem I have with mine is this leg. And this leg is very floppy. It is the only leg that I have a problem with this toy. Everything else is nice and tight, but you can move him around, quite a bit. He does have ankle tilt, which is really good for posing. It is something that the Siege line, I noticed that they've been doing a pretty good job with the ankle tilting, but it's just this one leg. Why do I have to suffer with this one leg? And I took a look in his back to see what was causing it, and it seems that I have a problem with the screw right there, which you can't really see, but the one screw that's in there must have been tightened a little too tight, and it's broken on the inside, and so it is probably what is the cause of it, because this leg is perfectly fine. It ratchets just the way that it needs to, and you can move his thighs, you can bend him at his knees, and get him some really awesome poses. Now, the one thing to take note of is the fact that he has a weird brute mode. It is not something I would ever expect Shockwave to have, but it does remind me of somebody, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But this particular Shockwave toy is a pretty cool looking figure overall. The problem that some people have with him is the fact that he is a leader class figure, and they look at him and they say, we don't understand. If you're never going to put him in his full brute mode, then he is really not to scale with other leader class figures. And I don't fault them, because when you take a look at some other leader class figures, he does scale pretty well with Ultra Magnus, and I also think Ultra Magnus is a little bit on the short side. If personally, I would like to get the extra, thigh extensions for him in particular, simply because I would like to see Ultra Magnus stand taller. But Shockwave is perfectly scaled. It's just the fact that he's a leader class toy, and that makes his price point a little high for some people. He's still cheaper than Masterpiece toys, but he's definitely well worth getting. But I understand people's complaints because when you compare him to another leader class toy, like Titans Return Shockwave, actually this is the Bumblebee movie release version of the Titans Return Soundwave, and when you compare the two, you can see such a huge size difference. And so, you're paying full price for a leader class Soundwave, and you pay full price for a leader class Shockwave, and he's a much smaller toy, and you can see why people get angry as far as the price is concerned. But the thing is that the Siege toy line is not about the size of the toy, but more so about the playability, and I think that has to do with the fact that he has his brute mode. But when I first saw the brute mode, though, the first toy I thought about was this guy, and that is Energon Bulkhead, and it's really top heavy, bulky, doesn't want to stand. And if you remember anything about Bulkhead, he would shake his hips to shoot these missile launchers on the side. It was the most ridiculous looking thing. But he has these extra arms that stick out, and that's exactly what this Shockwave reminds me of. And I wonder when they designed this toy if this is the guy they were thinking about, because this guy is weird. But it's interesting also that he scales pretty well with other Siege toys. As I showed you before with Ultra Magnus, he does scale well as a leader class toy. But when you're comparing him to other Siege Decepticons, of course, you're going to bring in Megatron, and if you guys saw my Siege Megatron toy review, you know I still showed him before I removed the battle damage, but now you can see I've removed his battle damage, I've got his Decepticon symbol, and I painted up the sides of his, his abs, as well as the backs of his arms to make him a more complete Megatron. You know, he does stand a little bit shorter than the Brute Mode for Shockwave, but that's okay because when you take Shockwave's armaments off, they scale about the same because this is kind of like pretty much armoring up Shockwave. Bringing in another Siege Decepticon, you know, here is Flywheels, Skytread, I know, and here he is alongside Classics Astrotrain. Actually, this is Henkei Astrotrain, where they recolored him to look more like the cartoon. And looking at all the Decepticons together, he does look pretty good. But now we want to get on to actually removing the Brute Mode, because the Brute Mode is really not something that I will ever display him in. I'm only showing it for the review itself, and the one part comes off here. This part on the shoulder comes off like so. And this one comes off as well. The one thing you have to take a look, one thing you have to take note of is the fact that you have like the pegs that are for the battle effects, and then the feet pop off. So it's a whole bunch of little extra parts that you don't need. You can get him in his classic all or dead pose, which we're going to get him in just like so. So you can see him in that classic pose, as if he's just finished off the Autobots. If you're familiar with the Marvel comic, in issue 4, Shockwave makes his first appearance. He was actually added to the comic because I think the end of the story didn't have Shockwave at all. And then when they realized that they were going to continue on with issue 5, they decided to add Shockwave, have him come in and blast the Autobots. It's a really interesting story. And it is something that that most people don't know, that issue 4 was supposed to be the end of the Marvel comic, and then issue 5 continued on, with Shockwave as leader of the Decepticons, and he led the Decepticons, I think, until issue 12, 13 Megatron came back, 15, Shockwave and Megatron were going back and forth with who was leading the Decepticons. It is something weird because they basically pushed Starscream to the side. And whereas the cartoon had Starscream was always the one who was trying to take command of the Decepticons. But as far as this Shockwave is concerned, he looks amazing. I mean, I think he scales perfectly as far as a Chug Shockwave. And you can do a whole bunch of extra stuff with the armaments here. The one thing a lot of people have been doing is, actually, it is part of the instructions. I don't know if it's in the instructions because I don't remember looking at the manual, but you can combine this into a battle platform, which is really, really cool looking. Going to get the one part here. Basically what you're doing is you're taking the pegs here, you open up the wing, put it in like so. Then combine them together. And that gives him his little riding chariot. Then take the arms like so. Pop them onto the side. Could be wrong. I don't think that they are supposed to go up. That's okay. But that creates a little battle platform for him to stand on. And I will say he does look really awesome. Of course, he does have the pegs on the bottom for his feet, so he can ride on one of them if you so desire. So he basically can ride into battle just like this and look awesome doing it. Now, before this was I think this now is going to be considered my Chug Shockwave, but before this toy came out, the only real option we have was this guy. And then, of course, we had the Combiner Wars Shockwave, which is much smaller, and that is designed to be used as a gun for Bruticus. But this particular Shockwave was the only thing that I had, because I skipped the Combiner Wars one because I wasn't collecting a lot of the Combiner Wars toys. But now thinking about it, I'm like, man, I should have gotten him because it would have been cool to have it with Bruticus. But this was my Shockwave for a while until this guy came out. This really goes to show you how much of an improvement they've made with Shockwave. Especially considering that his character has gotten a lot of love over the years with, here he is with the Robot Heroes one. I know this is not actually Shockwave, but it technically is Shockwave, because Tidal Wave in Transformers Armada was called Shockwave in Micron Legend, which is the Japanese version. So he was called Shockwave, and when he was upgraded to Mirage, he was actually upgraded to Shock Fleet. And this is actually the Takara version of Tidal Wave, so that this way that I have him, he was actually supposed to be Shockwave, but he has actually a separate character. But when Transformers Energon came around, they decided to release Shockwave again, but this time they went with a different name, and that was because they lost the trademark, and that was with Shock Blast. And Shock Blast is one funky toy with that arm. They almost took the cannon arm with the G1 Shockwave, and they just went wild with it. And I really do wish that they just had called him Shockwave. But in Japan, where the character was called Laser Wave, the Japanese Superlink did also call this toy Laser Wave. Now, speaking of Laser Wave, I couldn't be complete without showing off a G1 Shockwave. Now, this isn't actually Shockwave. This is actually Radio Shack Gray Shockwave, I guess you can say. The Astro Magnum toy was repainted purple. And the one thing is over the years, his legs don't stand up very well. The Hasbro version of this toy, they actually changed the crotch trigger, which is why this Shockwave is very happy to see everybody. But that just happens to be probably a fun joke with the toy. But keeping his legs up is not an easy task. But he still has his laser sound effects. And he can blast on Autobots with his cannon in a very, very weird place. And of course, this Shockwave would be probably ordering other Decepticons around. Probably Reflector. Here is G1 Reflector bringing in some Energon cubes for the Decepticons. Now, transforming him is quite interesting because the thing about this toy is that it really pays a lot of homage to the original G1 toy in a lot of ways. The rubber hose itself is not rubber, it is plastic. It's like a very soft plastic. They have painted battle damage on it, as well as painted battle damage on his feet, but it can detach from the peg there on his forearm there. And he transforms in a very similar way to his G1 toy. What you're going to do is you're going to push the head down. Instead of pushing the head down, what you're going to do is you're going to open it up this way, and you're going to put the head inside and close it up like so. And then you bring the arms up, and it's a very similar transformation to his G1 self. The difference here is that the cannon that would normally attach to the arms is on a hinge with the toy, so you don't have to worry about losing it like you did with the original G1 toy. The one thing you do have to take note of is that this has to kind of, have a little bit of space in the middle so that the arms can fit this way. And once they go in, so basically you're going to have it just like this, close it, and then what I do is I get the hose itself plugged in like that so that he still has his cannon. Now, the next step you're going to do is you're going to work on the legs. So in order to transform the legs, what you're going to do is you're going to turn the legs 180 degrees this way. You then open up the legs, and you do the same thing on this side. So it turns around, so actually it turns this way. And I'm fumbling with this, but it's alright because trying to do it on camera is much more difficult to do than it is doing when you have the toy just sitting in front of you. But it comes together like so, and the outside part of the legs are on the inside here, and they come together to form what is supposed to be his space shuttle mode. But if we are G1 fans, we know what this is supposed to be. This is supposed to be his base spaceship mode. And come on now. Anyone who's a G1 fan of the toy knows exactly what this is. It's not quite oh yeah, and it does peg in so that it does sit flush, but you can kind of hold him in a funky G1 toy-esque position because this is Shockwave, and he wouldn't be complete if he wasn't a space gun. And what's really cool about the toy is you can combine him with the rest of his shuttle mode to create a full-blown space shuttle. Now, before I do that, it wouldn't be right of me not to show you his G1 space cannon mode. I misplaced the gun turret that supposed to go on the top here. It's supposed to be gray, so you can see it's very much that G1 cannon mode like it was before. I'm just waiting for somebody to come up with a plastic piece that goes here or somewhere in this vicinity to create the targeting scope that was on the original. If you can kind of see it there. Yeah, that's the old original. But again, this is a painted Shockwave, so... But now to get him into his special... But in order to get him into his special spaceship mode, we are going to take the extra parts apart, quite literally, and we're going to attach them. And they attach pretty interesting. The one part here goes on top, and then one part here goes on top. And this creates cannons for him, as well as giving him a much more complete looking cannon in that respect. And then this part here attaches on the side. Do the same with the other one on the little peg holes there on the leg. And he's basically a glorified parts former for his warship mode. I would say he does have his space gun mode, and he has a special battalion space cruiser mode. And he does look pretty cool. There is a nifty effect that you can probably see is the eye right there in the center. It does have light piping. It kind of gives you the idea that this is like Shockwave's personal warship, but in reality, this is just Shockwave in spaceship mode. And overall, he's a great-looking toy. I mean, I would even venture to say that you could try to make him more like a space gun this way, or do certain things that you might want to do with the toy. You can play with this toy however you want. He's got so many peg holes in so many places that you can probably have a field day messing around with this toy, but he does look good. And personally, I'm probably going to display him with having the skateboard thing that he has, and keep him that way, and because at the end of the day, I don't really care for the brute mode, but it is a great Shockwave toy. And transforming him back, it's just as simple. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to separate the legs like this. Pops open very easily, and you can see how easily it is to transform once you've transformed him the first time. And I think this is pretty much the case with any Transformers toy that you own. Once you've transformed them the first time, it is very, very easy to transform back and forth from the different modes. And in particular, I really, really dig this Shockwave toy. I think this is, again, you know, as far as Chug is concerned, it is definitive. It's not, I would not say it's like the Masterpiece, you know, because the Masterpiece toy, from what I've seen in images, I do not own him. I don't own the Masterpiece toy, but I do think that this is as close as you're going to get for the price point and getting a really solid Shockwave toy at the end of the day, because we've needed a Shockwave toy that does the character justice. I don't think the character has had as good of toys as he could have when you break it down in comparison to the other Shockwave toys that have come out. I would even say like that this is better than even, I would say, the movie toys, because I never really cared for the movie design. And Transformers Prime, while it looks cool, I think it was a little bit too angular for the character. I liked, though, there's just something about this like stocky, blocky Shockwave that feels like he literally is a walking weapon. And that is what Shockwave is. He is a walking, logical weapon, and I never felt that way with any other Shockwave toy except for the G1 toy, but the G1 toy was more designed to be a kid's play toy that also turned into a robot, and that was kind of, you know, then it was used for, you know, Shockwave in particular. But overall, again, this is definitely definitive Shockwave, and I think it's probably the best one, you know, out there. Personally, my version of Shockwave, even though he at first logically thought that maybe he might have been better as a leader of the Decepticons, I think that Megatron is the definitive leader of the Decepticons, even if he becomes Galvatron. Which might be a future video in the future. I do have more Transformers discussions coming down the pipeline, but I want to know what you guys think. What do you guys think of C Shockwave? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video and check out my other videos as well. I've got plenty more videos down the pipeline coming soon, so stay tuned for that. And as always, guys, until next time, till all are one.